Hey everybody, it's Plant-Based Life and Style. I'm Elizabeth Alfano. I am so happy to have you here with me. I do have to tell you that this is the last show that I will do live in 2020. I'll run some reruns during the holidays because I too am taking a break. This has been such a crazy year. I certainly don't need to tell you all this. So it'll be nice to spend time with family and take a break. And I wish all of you the same. I have an incredible show today. I have Pastor Robert Munro with me. He's going to talk about how he went from a very deep illness to turning around his life with veganism and then feeling that ethical call that we all feel once we realize the facts, and how he went on to really take that to new heights for himself as a pastor. So I can't really wait to talk to him, but you all know that I start my show with the news. So here we go. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's the Plant-Based Business Minute. I'm Elizabeth Alfano, and each week I break down the top 3 headlines in a minute or less without a teleprompter. Okay, here we go. Let's get into it. Plant-based food manufacturer Plant and Bean is opening a 65-acre manufacturing facility that's going to produce 55,000 tons of plant-based food. This is happening in the UK. My business bottom line here is that when they replicate this to also be in Asia and the US, you will see that plant-based prices will start to come down. It has long been a bottleneck issue for small plant-based companies that they don't scale and can't produce enough quantity to actually bring the prices down. That in 2021 will change. Prices will come down, but things are always up for Impossible Foods. Today, they launched the Impossible Whopper in Japan. Congratulations to them. But even more exciting, they have released a report saying that in 2020, their retail presence expanded 100-fold, and that 2020 has been their best year in the top 10 years of their existence. My business bottom line is this: COVID has been an incredible tailwind for all plant-based products and plant-based consumption, and that my predictions for 2021 are you are going to see an increase more than 2-fold of the rate of consumption of plant-based foods. As we head into the holidays, here's a little bit of fun news. Jelly Bellies now has a vegan line in both original and sour, which means their jelly beans don't have gelatin, otherwise known as crushed animal parts. Who would want that in their candy? Certainly not children. But that is no longer going to be in their Jelly Bellies. Their flavors are apple, lemon, orange, very berry, and very cherry. More fun news. The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, she has gifted to her gal pal friend Oprah a plant-based oat milk wellness latte. And Oprah on her Insta page has said, "Oh, I love this, and it is my new drink morning and night." So my business bottom line here is Oprah. Oh my gosh, go vegan already. You have been toying with the idea since Kathy Preston was on your show over a decade ago. Oprah, go vegan. Oprah, just go vegan. That's a Plant-Based Business Minute. I'm Elizabeth Alfano. If you would like a deeper dive into plant-based business, please subscribe to the Plant-Based Business Hour wherever you get your podcasts. And if you are a small plant-based business or large meat and dairy, and you are looking to navigate the plant-based landscape, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. My team and I are here to help you with marketing, media, communication, strategy, and execution. Until I see you all again in 2021, remember that together, we're taking back our health, the health of our planet, and the health of our bottom line. Oh my gosh, even on holidays, there's so much news to report. All good news, though, folks. Everything good coming out of plant-based news. I feel sorry for the rest of the world. You know, the rest of the world is in so much toil, but we here in the plant-based world, we just get to report good news basically all the time. I want to bring in my next guest because he brings the word, the real word, the word of God. If you are religious or not, it doesn't matter. Even for the spiritual folks, he brings the word. I want to welcome Pastor Robert Munro to my show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Elizabeth, so much for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. So we have lots to talk about. First, I want to give people a little bit of background about you before we go into your ethical journey and your church, where you hold mass and sermons on behalf of animals and ethical veganism all the time. But first, I want to understand your story. So how did you come to be vegan?
Well, I've said it many times. Thank God I had a third stroke.
Oh my gosh.
Paralyzed, unable to walk, talk. I was drooling, had the droop, and was told by the head of neurosurgery that I should get my affairs in order, and it was likely that I had 6 months or less to live. And not being able to walk or talk, I surely believed him. Luckily, at the time, I was dating a woman who was a physician. And after 3 days in triage, I was back at home and laying in bed. Oh, woe is me, I'm dead. And she came over and said, "You're not dying." I said, "What, are you crazy?" Well, I didn't speak really. I was like, "Arr." And so, I looked like I was half dead. And she said, no, I had 12 years of medical school, a year and a half of pharmacology, 15 minutes of nutrition. She said, "I found something today called the China study." She said, "It's the food you're eating. It has nothing to do with the stress you're under." And so, wouldn't you know, that day she cleared out all the cabinets, and I went whole food, plant-based, no salt, no oil, no sugar. And under a month, 26 days, the paralysis was gone. My speech had come back. The drool had stopped. And that was so many years ago, I've lost count.
There's so many things to be thankful for, but I'll just start with, can you believe the human body that in, what did you say, 3 to 4 weeks time, it turned around for you?
Unbelievable. Just like the Daniel diet, 10 days, okay? Once you stop putting toxicity in your body, it changes every time. And I'm not unique. I'm one in a million. This is catching on. People are learning. It's what we put in here. I try to explain to people, a kid going to school for working on motors, the first thing they're taught is what type of fuel do you use for specific engines? An electric motor, a diesel motor, a gas motor, a propane motor, okay? And so that we even have these discussions today in a developed society is so absurd that it just boggles my mind that we could negotiate what should go in here to make the rest of this work. Really?
Yeah, it is interesting, that disconnect, but in a way, my heart goes out to people because I feel that they have been intentionally led astray. So you think, as you say, well, you add it to a car, and you would never expect a car to run on things that weren't meant for it. For example, you weren't meant to be eating animals and animal proteins, et cetera. And yet historically that's been proven out with, generations before us. But yet we fill the body and then just expect it to run as if the two weren't connected. It's so very strange. Well, okay. So you decided, so you had this kind of, I have to say, revelation. I don't mean to say that just because we're talking about, religious things today, but, you have this life affirming event here. Well, how old were you when this took place, when you reversed your diet?
I'd like to say 50, 51.
Okay. So even more astounding in that, we're not talking about the body of a 25-year-old. We're talking about 5 decades of somebody who has, just like all of us, it's not a criticism of you. You've been putting the wrong thing in your body for 5 decades. Yes. And in a month, it turns itself around. Okay. So I've made that point a gazillion times over now. Okay. So then how does the rest of your life take off from there? At this point, you're a businessman, you're in your 50s, you change your diet. Do you change the rest of your life with it?
Well, my life has been a kind of unique one, no doubt. But I had a moral, religious, spiritual epiphany event happen that made my life make sense. And without going into detail, because honestly, I hardly believe what happened, so I wouldn't expect others to. But let's just say that I never doubted that there was God. I never doubted my faith in God. I wasn't a person who said, "Oh, if you do this, then I'll believe you're there." I know better than to play those games. But I had an interaction, and that interaction led me to where I am today. And it just, everything seemed to make sense. And God surely does not want us eating animals. Absolutely.
Okay, so let me backtrack there. So you're turning your life around, but you had faith before your diet issues. Is that right? So you were already religious. Is that true?
Oh my goodness, yes. I grew up in Catholic faith. I was being groomed in that direction. I have cousins and many relatives that are either nuns, priests, clergy members, ministers. And I studied for several years with the Jesuits, and let's just say on summer sabbatical, they they decided that my calling wasn't the calling for them.
I see. So well, they're pretty strict, I gotta say, the Jesuits, but
What can I tell you? And luckily that they did that, or else I'd probably be sitting with one of them being plump and, stuffing my face with donuts every morning. So.
Well, so this is very interesting, and we're going to get into this after the break. This idea that, your body is a temple. Again, I don't mean to use that really in the religious form here, but that there isn't more of a focus on taking care of one's body as you are sort of honoring your creator. Obviously, someone has created you. If you believe those, I'm not religious myself per se, I'll say, but you didn't get here on accident. So, you wouldn't take a Picasso and rip it apart and throw red paint on it, and you are your own work of art. And if you're not going to honor that, you're kind of ripping it apart. It's amazing that that connection isn't made more in religious circles.
Just self-respect.
Just self-respect. And we're getting a lot of comments on Facebook of people saying the same thing. I hate to do this. We're going to go to break, but when we get back, we're going to get into some of the specifics about it, because every once in a while I do run into folks that say, oh, well, hey, there's animals being eaten in the Bible all over the place, but I beg to differ on that one. It's Plant-Based Life and Style. As we head into the Christmas holiday, we are talking about religion and vegan and diet and how those things come together. Stay put. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody on Facebook. I'm so happy to see you here. Jacqueline, we're going to get into your question right after the break. Kayla, thanks for your comments. Tom, always great to see you. SS Sadan Khan, Vashti. There's so many people here. Patricia, Tina, hi, how are you? Oh, I got to go back. Miriam. Hey, everybody, Plant-Based Life and Style. We are back. I'm Elizabeth Alfano, but much more importantly, I am here with Pastor Robert Munro, and he is talking to us about how in his faith and in his church, the Humanitarian Church, they really have an ethical standpoint of being vegan activists. Can I say that? Can I use that in relation to your church?
Absolutely, because that's what we are, vegan.
Okay, so before we get into your church specifically, because I want to get clarity on this, there's the Humanitarian Church and there's also the St. Francis of Assisi parish that you have. So before we get into the details of your particular church, let's talk about veganism and the Bible. So every once in a while, somebody will say to me, oh, well, animals are sacrificed all over the place in the Bible. What is your response to this, sir?
Well, if you don't mind a little...
Oh, you can't swear. I have to tell you that because we're on radio. Go ahead.
No, I won't swear.
Okay.
I will say that in my belief, in my faith, in my research, which is supported by Mr. Keith Akers and Reverend Andrew Lindsay, I would say that those two theologians would concur with this, that the original three religions that followed Jesus Christ were the Ebianites, Essenes, and Nazarenes. The Ebianites, who I identify with, were led by James, the brother of Jesus, who was also a devout vegan. Many people in the Christian faith don't even realize Jesus had a brother named James. So that is quite amazing. And Paul, the Saint Paul, actually thought he had beat to death James over the argument of not eating animals. This argument has been going on since day one. Okay? And this is the true fight of evil and good. In the Bible, all of the Bibles originally were destroyed by the year 300 AD by the Romans, when they killed all of the Essenes, Nazarenes, and Ebionites. Every Bible was burned. The closest thing we have to that Bible, I understand, is the Gospel of Matthew. So all of these Bibles today, and people have seen me, I tear them up, I'll throw them across the church. I use them as kindling in the church stove. I have hundreds of Bibles. I burn them all the time, okay? You want to read the Bible to me? Great. Let's start at the first section. Thou shalt honor the Sabbath. Have you ever worked on a Sunday? Great, you have? Then you won't mind me beating you to death with a rock, will you? If you don't agree with that, then please, let's not even talk about somebody eating a fish in the Bible, because it's all baloney. It really is.
Well, so let's dig into that a little bit further. And I see what you're saying. You can sort of pick apart the Bible, but I just, from my understanding, and I was raised Roman Catholic, and I went to Catholic schools in grade school. I went to the Jesuits in high school. Um, so Jesus doesn't eat meat. Go through the Bible, folks. He doesn't eat meat. So I think it's hard to reconcile that if you're saying I want to live in Jesus's name or his following or whatever. Now, as I understand it, and you're a scholar, so you can tell me otherwise, but it's up in the air as to whether Jesus ate fish, because the word for fish and water were quite similar in those days. So it's uncertain there. But in terms of like just lamb or something, Jesus never did that. Would you be able to comment?
Sure, of course. One of the great things about the fish story, the biggest fish story, is Jesus feeding the 5,000 people with fish and bread. Well, interestingly enough, only one of the synoptic gospels actually mentions fish. And during that time, fish would translate in Greek language to Jesus. So whether or not you really believe, 25% of the story being that is one thing. But interestingly enough, at the end of it, all four synoptic gospels talk about them going around and picking up the crumbs. And there were enough crumbs of bread left over to feed more people. Well, wait a minute. No one said there was any fish scales, fish flesh, fish parts picked up in that moment. So when you read the Bible, and as much as I don't like to lean towards it, I think we all know innately the truth, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You can't see Jesus walking over to a baby lamb stuck in a thicket of thorns.
No.
He frees them from the thorns, picks them up, and he's walking them back, and then grabs them by the scruff of the neck, slices his throat, and says, "Who wants baby lamb on the Barbie tonight?" That's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I love that you say this. I love that you go into detail here. I would also like to point to a couple other things, although again, I am no scholar. As I understand it, Genesis 1:29 says, "And here I give you seed and fruit."
Every herb bearing seed, and every fruit with a tree of a seed yielding fruit in it. And for you, that shall be thy meat.
And for you, that shall be thy meat.
That shall be thy meat.
Yes.
My dad, a wonderful gentleman, taught me well. He taught me, I'm going to tell you something once, okay? If I have to tell you something twice, you're going to get the back of my hand.
Yikes.
If I have to tell you a third time, you're going to get this.
Holy cow.
I learned very quickly. Why is it that God would have to tell us anything more than once? He breathed the breath of life in us. He said, this is what you're going to have to eat, period. Okay? What? He has to remind us? Why? Or God, I shouldn't say he, she, it. Okay, God. All right? Whoever that being might be, because none of us, and if anybody tells you for sure who that is, they're full of it, because until you get over the other side, the best guess is a guesstimate. Okay? So although I think I've had a pretty strong direct connection, but we'll leave that for another talk.
Okay, that's another interview. I just want to point out, so basically I'm just listing my knowledge of the Bible, and the inconsistencies I find, but ultimately what I'm hoping to do is have a conversation with everyone and they can wrestle with it themselves. I also, when I think of the Garden of Eden, animals weren't kicked out of the Garden of Eden. It was just Adam and Eve. So it's only humans that got kicked out. And then with Noah's Ark, it's all the animals that were saved. So
well, interesting. If I might just kind of give you a little idea.
Oh, hold on, because we're going to break. You can, right? When we come back from break, we're going to get into depth of this little idea. Just for giving you food for thought today, literally everybody, as we go into the holidays, just making sense of our religion, because we have these inconsistencies that aren't maybe serving us. So when we come back from break, it's Plant-Based Life and Style. I will be back with Pastor Robert Munro. Oh, everybody, I want to say thank you. I'm getting lots of comments here. People are really responding. Hi, Tina. Hi, Rebecca. Some Rebecca is saying that fish maybe in the Bible also meant hummus, or that there was some talk about that, but we're going to get into it right after break. Here we go. And we're back. It's Plant-Based Life and Style. I'm Elizabeth Alfano. I am here with Pastor Robert Munro, and he is talking to us about some details. I was saying right before the break, oh, hey, now, hold on. Noah saved animals per God's direction, and it's only humans that got kicked out of the Garden of Eden. So, Pastor, you wanted to riff on that.
I really do. The story about Noah is that at the end of this period of time, when the ark landed on land, that God somehow gave man permission to eat animals again, or gave them permission to eat animals because of a flood. Well, that doesn't make sense. Okay, it's common sense we have to look at when we have to consider religious things. So here's the common sense of that. Two elephants eat 1,000 pounds of food a day. They were out to sea for almost 200 days. That's 200,000 pounds of food that Noah would have, first of all, had to have grown before the rain, harvested, loaded it onto the boat. Now that's 200,000 pounds for two animals. And that's if the food doesn't get wet, spoiled, go rotten. And you don't know if it's going to be 200 days, 300 days, 500 days. Who knows? It's going to rain for 40. We know that. But when's it going to subside? Well, guess what? They were growing food on the boat. Sprouts. You can grow food in 7 days, all right? So he had to bring 7 days worth of food. They had growing rooms. Go down and visit the ark. If you can't visit the ark, look at it on YouTube or something. They had growing rooms. So they were growing stuff. If you grow microgreens, you plant today, you harvest in 7 days. So in 7 days, you're growing all the food that everybody in that ark needed. You did not need to eat an animal now that you've landed on shore. Let's starve for 200 days. Now that you're on land, now let's not starve. That doesn't make sense. Okay?
Yeah, and so I think what you're saying is if you are surviving so well on plants, then why would you ever go after?
There's one more step to it. And this is why I'm disliked by many people, but so be it. So Noah brought his family and his children's spouses, and those people, while they were on the boat, knew better than to kill and eat an animal because Noah would have thrown them overboard. But now that they were on land,
makes sense.
They did what they wanted. They weren't obligated to Noah anymore. So Noah had too kind a heart to save too many people. Okay, he should have left some of his family members behind. And that's why I get into trouble, because a lot of people say to me, "What should I do with this family member? I've spent years trying to educate them, and they will not convert. Whether it's husband, wife, child," and I say, "Leave them. Be done with them."
Telling it like it is here on Plant-Based Life and Style. Well, these are tricky subjects, and I did hesitate as well myself. I thought, oh gosh, should I roll into the holidays and address the inconsistency of religion by having things that say thou shalt not kill, and yet everyone rolls up to the dinner table to a ham? I mean, how does religion rectify that within itself? And so let's talk about your church, because religion really doesn't rectify it, and it's really a problem.
We're not allowed to sit at a table where flesh is served, period. The Ebianite Faith, which was the original religion that followed Jesus Christ, specifically states, "Thou shalt not sit at a table where flesh is served." That enables the devil to take the souls of the people that are at that table. So it's very important not to sit at that table.
So I want to stress for folks as I get into this interview, personally, I'm not religious, but I was raised on so much religion, and it has never been consistent, and it has always annoyed me. And so that's why we are here having this conversation today. So I love what you're saying, at least for your followers, you have this very strict rule. So that would mean that everyone in your church is vegan. Is that right? And maybe give us an understanding of what your church is.
Absolutely.
And is it your church? I'm sorry to not have this information. Is it your church per se, or have you been asked to be the pastor there? Give us a little background on the Humanitarian Church.
Interestingly, New York, where we're located, is the strictest religious corporation state in the country. And this is why, unlike Florida, you'll see every storefront in the city, in the state, you can be a church in the same day. It took 18 months just for the New York State Supreme Court to approve the purchase. It took another year for the county to approve the church before that. It was 2.5 years before we even got the key to this building, which was 4 years ago. The compliance of being a church in the state of New York, the book is this thing. It's insane. But the beauty of that is when I say that I'm the pastor of a church in New York, every pastor of a church knows that we're legitimate and we're a vegan church. And it's in our documents that we are vegan, period, that we eat plants only, period. And we're a strict vegan religious organization. So when I talk to other pastors about going vegan, they know that, I'm just not a Florida church that get open today. And so everything that is here, it's a church, and it will continue until it doesn't.
So let me ask you then, one, how do other pastors respond to this? Are they starting to take this message to their own constituents? And then two, is it a vegan religion? How would you characterize this? Or is it religion where you have vegan tenets?
Basically, we have a vegan basis, okay, which means I welcome anyone and everyone, regardless of faith, sex, gender, desires. One tenet: don't eat, abuse, harm animals in any way, shape, or form, period. Once you do that, all these other things work out. Okay, I have very good priests, Catholic priests that are friends, Buddhist priests that are friends, Buddhist monks that are friends, Tibetans that are I have rabbis that are friends. None of that matters, okay? What matters is when you stop putting animals in here, everything really does become yay and amen. You don't have a question that there's a greater power, I'm sure. Okay, whether or not you want to follow the Catholic faith, Presbyterian faith, none of that really matters. It's what happens inside of you is what matters. And God feels that connection, not a priest.
And I love that you say that. So the real connection is with the individual and their God, and that faith that they share together. And what you're also saying here is that it's very hard to have that kind of connection when you have death on your plate 3 times a day and violence and death on your plate. And a different show we could have would be how that violence and death on your plate then takes a toll on society, crime rates, et cetera, how people treat each other. One would argue it's very difficult to have a peaceful society when you have a society built around the mass torture of living beings. That's not going to work. So, but we're not talking about that today. Today we're talking about religion. So do you have other pastors that give you grief, or are they accepting of this? How does that go?
I've gotten quite a bit of hate from members of the clergy, theologians, priests, brothers, you name it. The list goes on. Seems like Monday morning is always a time when I get a barrage of hate mail. Theologians from London are up later of the time change for some reason. So when I open emails on Monday, it's always a bad morning. And so, but the truth of the matter is that the church really does know that consuming animals blocks the connection to God.
And is that when the gross general that respond to you via email, are they taking issue with the fact that you're saying don't eat meat, and that's so that's the part that they take issue with?
Oh yeah, every time.
Why? There's nothing religious about eating meat. I don't understand.
It shakes their belief system because they believe that they're okay in doing it. And if they realize that they're not, then they're going to go through the misery like I went through. And it's not nice.
Misery in what way?
The day you realize
how much harm you've caused.
That you're going to hell. And you deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm just trying to mitigate the level of hell I go to.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I will never make it to heaven. How many animals died in my lifetime to feed me? I don't believe that forgiveness is that easy. I don't think that repentance is you have to strive for it.
Repentance is something you have to strive for. I do have a question. Someone saying, "Oh, can you speak up just a little bit because they're missing some of what you're saying?"
Sorry. I get
thank
a little.
Thank you.
Look, the bottom line is, if you by accident ran somebody over, and that person was a working man and he provided a home and a life for a family, then you should give up your life and work to provide for that family for the rest of their life. Well, that's the same for every animal that we ate. A family lost a mother, a father, a brother, a sister.
Yeah.
And I can't.
It's so hard. I feel exactly what you feel, and I'm always amazed that others can't feel this or refuse to feel this or refuse to see this. When I think of dairy, and I think of dairy that is built on the systematic breaking of the bond between mother and baby, I am so horrified. And those animals that are in so much grief at their separation from one another, and the willingness to refuse to see that. Now, in fairness to everyone, there's some good marketing working to protect those entities, but we are going to take a break. So sorry to do this, everybody. We will be back on Plant-Based Life and Style. Oh, everybody. It's just, please share to your friends. Please, please, please bring everybody back. Here we go. Last. We're back. It's Plant-Based Life and Style. So much to get into here. 2020 has been quite the year, hasn't it? And then the holidays are always so much for so many of us. And then to boot, today we're bringing on the very hard topic of religion and veganism, and how can so many people claim to be religious and then create so much harm for the very weak and feeble. I mean, really, you wouldn't punch a baby in the face, but then to torture animals, it just makes no sense. So I am here with Pastor Rob Munro, and we are talking, as we wrap up, because we have our last segment here, we are talking about our tips for being animal activists as we go into the holiday season. So I know right before the break, Pastor, we were talking about your church specifically. So just again, to reiterate for those, because it can be a little confusing. There's so many churches and so many religions. Everyone who is a member of your congregation, they are vegan, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, and they believe in it wholeheartedly, or are some people still working through it, or no, they already come as converts?
I've converted so many. I lost count.
Yeah. I love this, and I love this connection that veganism as a religion, in the sense that there are tenets to veganism: to do no harm, to not killing, to living in peace and harmony with nature and animals, and that should be every religion's perspective, of course.
Whatever your belief is will be enhanced by not eating animals.
I love that. And I'm going to quote that. Whatever your belief is, it will be enhanced by not eating animals. Yes, 100%. So as we go into our last segment, we are going to rip down the top tips here. So let's go through it. What are your top 5 tips for being an animal activist this holiday season?
Great. Number 1, use this holiday season to approach all family members. Okay. Number 1. Number 2, a great way to go after people is open up your checkbook. Well, in my day, we used a checkbook. Today, use your bank statement. Whoever you spend money with is somebody who's a candidate to go vegan. Okay? Pick up the phone. If you use a landscaping service, call the landscaper. Okay? He'll think you'd call him, wish him a happy holiday, and open the discussion of veganism. Okay? The third thing, wherever you may go, if you're in a church, if you're in a religious organization, please open the discussion with them. about opening the spirituality pathway of veganism to God. Okay? The fourth thing is follow your passion. Follow your passion. If you're in yoga, then talk to other yoga people. If you're a dietitian, talk to other dietitians. Okay? Me, I do well talking to other pastors and priests. So we should focus within our strengths. And finally, follow your passion. Whatever you're passionate about, someone will feel your passion. Okay? And and talk veganism everywhere you go to everyone you meet.
Yeah, so that is a true animal activist, somebody who is talking vegan to anybody and everybody. But I just kind of want to recap these because I think they're so strong. Family members, sometimes the toughest to bring on over, but they are the closest reach. So particularly now as we sit down and we eat with folks, come on, if we're ever going to be connected to the world around us and peace in our own hearts, you can't find peace over dead carcasses. And we all know that. That's inherent to all of us. And if you doubt this, just ask children. And if you explain to children how those animals are treated and what happens to them, they wouldn't do it. So, but your number 2 is, I love this. I really want to riff on this. You have a relationship with a lot of people because you spend money with them. So they are there to listen because, ultimately that checkbook, as Pastor Rob said, that checkbook is connecting the two of you. So money is always a very strong connector for people to at least be willing to hear the conversation. And it really is, as you say, all about using your voice, having that dialogue with folks as you go into your outer circle, find that dialogue. And a great place to find that dialogue is already where you have your passion. So if, as you say, yoga's your thing, or if, who knows, and you're taking French or a language class is your thing, a photography class, talk to the other people that are there with you. Your passion will shine through. And then lastly, you have a special skill set. So Pastor Rob, for him, it happens to be being immersed in the study of the Bible, et cetera. Okay, that's not going to be for everybody, but you definitely have a skill set. So use that skill set that you have and use it towards good. So I love to refer to this as the bingo effect. When your passion meets your skill set, you're like 150% of yourself. You are so empowered to be your best self because you're using all the skills you have for the thing that you believe in most. And that's catchy. People, really respond to that. So I love what you say. And thank you for your top tips. How are you spending your holidays this year?
I usually spend them alone. I do. I spend them in solemn prayer. I do. And that's how it's been.
Do you ever do fasting as part of, we used to do, you do. How often do you do fasting and do you do it for health reasons or for a religious connection?
I find that if you can do it for a period of time, the clarity increases. So do it as often as the body will allow. I try to fast once a week.
Oh, you do it once a week. And do you do pure fasting, water only, or do you have juice and other sort of?
I do the water. I just do the water. I skip the meals.
And you skip the meals. I try for a while. I was really good at this when I had a little bit more time, but I'm getting back to it because I loved it. No food, but I would juice in the morning and it's a carrot, lemon, and red pepper. And I would just then have that with me all day. So I was getting calories, so it's not really fasting, but I would have that juice. And it was like drinking the sun because you have lemon and red pepper, all that vitamin C. It was just wonderful.
Wow. I'll try that because your energy level is fantastic. It really is.
I do have a lot of energy. It's true. And I do love what I do. So here's what we're talking about. Take your skill set and your passion. That's what Pastor Rob does. That's what I do here. And bring it to those to, get them on the journey. But here's another thing, we dangle this like vegan over here, but it is a path to happiness. So you're going to get your health back. You're going to get more energy. I mean, all we're doing is saying, hey, folks, life is a little better over here. So in that way, it's not a hard sell.
Nope. Easy try.
Easy. Do you have any New Year's resolutions for yourself?
To convert more churches. I'm going to go on a real mission this year. I'll be able to share a little more with you later, but I'm going to go on a path through the Bible Belt in the South and go all the way to the West Coast and visit churches and try to convert them all. I think we have to work within our own groups, like a lawyer should police his own legal people, and I think priests should go out and police the priests.
I love this.
On my intent, I bought a big motorhome, and since we're closed for COVID anyway, I'm not going to sit around, and I'm going to start in Virginia, head down the East Coast, go to the Carolinas and Georgia, Florida, come across Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, Arizona, hit California, come back up that West Coast, and come through the Plain States back to here.
Oh my God, you are bringing the word across the United States. So Pastor Rob just might be in a city near you. I hate to end it here. Everybody, happy holidays. Thank you for all you do. Pastor Rob, thank you for being with me. And everyone else, go vegan. It is a path to happiness. See you on the other side in 2021.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, everybody on Facebook, don't go away, Pastor Rob. Everybody else on Facebook, so great to have you with me. I may not see you again. This is my last live until 2021. So happy holidays to everybody. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for caring about animals. Thank you for helping spread the word. We are all so appreciative of the work that each and every one of you do. You are huge lights and you are huge voices in the world. So thank you for being there. I am over and out, and I will see you all in 2021. Pastor, stay put.